I went from starting this effort feeling extremely confident that if I do these numbers, I will get the attempt. This is my goal time. I got it. Here we go. To when I made that left-hand turn for those last 15 miles, I remember thinking, I have come all the way here. I have told everybody I can do this. I have flown a film crew out to help showcase this success. And now I don't even know if I can do this.
All right. Hello and welcome to the First Endurance Podcast, where we are once again talking about Mauna Kea. My guest today is Hannah Otto, professional mountain bike and gravel racer, current XC Marathon national champion, correct? And newly minted FKT/QOM on the Mauna Kea climb, putting nearly 30 minutes into the previous fastest time. Hannah, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about this.
Me too. So as I mentioned in the intro, you wear a lot of hats and you do a lot of racing between like UCI level mountain bike, Lifetime Grand Prix, which is obviously like a big logistical lift. So you could be forgiven for saying that you're a little too busy to go rip a 5+ hour climb in Hawaii during your off season. So I'm just wondering what the impetus for undertaking this challenge was, because it's also not the first time that you've done that. It seems like maybe every late winter, early spring, you did Kokopelli, right? And you did White Rim in the past couple years, Mauna Kea this year. So are these things that you've been thinking about for a long time, sort of bucket list items, or do they function as sort of like a big goal to motivate and direct your winter training, or is it something else entirely?
This is such a great question, and I could feel like I could take it so many different ways because there's a lot of reasons I do these attempts. On the simplest side, I love it. I think it's so much fun, and I think people do ask that a lot. You're doing so many things. Why add one more thing? Because I would be lying if I was like, oh yeah, I just add it. It's super simple. Like, no, this is very complicated. It takes a lot of work. It's a tremendous amount of effort, both physically, mentally, emotionally. But to me, it's so worth every aspect because in some ways, it feels like, despite how much work it is, it's the simplest form of riding your bike. To me, there's something so pure about the FKT, QOM, whatever you want to call it, style effort that just keeps bringing me back. And it's a beautiful way for me to remember over and over that ultimately the reason I ride my bike and race my bike is to see what's possible for me. And I love racing because other people allow me to expand those parameters. They help push me. But going out on my own to do my own effort, I also learn more about myself in those moments of solitude, of quiet. And it's so fun to research these. Like you said, is this something that you have thought about for a long time? Is it? And yes, I already know the next 2 or 3 of these that I want to do. And I've known this one for the last 2 or 3 years as well. And as cheesy as it sounds, it really is a love story for me because it's like this slow courtship with each FKT as I sit and Google this and what's the time and what's the weather and when do I go? And all of a sudden, every tab on my computer is reading Mauna Kea, Mauna Kea, Mauna Kea. And that's when I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I'm in love. It's time to do this. I have to try.
Yeah, so that's like a perfect segue into the next question because I'm sort of wondering, I said prep, but I could put it as like, what does that courtship look like in terms of like the research you're doing? What does that look like? How are you prepping from like a physical standpoint or for things like heat or altitude in the case of this effort?
Yeah, it feels, again, multifaceted, a little bit complicated, but also very simple. Like you said, I wear a lot of hats. I'm doing a lot of different things. And so I don't have the ability most of the time to perfectly prep for this singular attempt. I'm counting on my other training and my other efforts throughout the season to help me be able to do these types of things. And that's part of what I do take into account when I pick these efforts is it somewhat within my range of abilities? This one was, it's interesting because so is it somewhat within my range of abilities? And also, does it take me just far enough outside of my comfort zone? Both of those things to me have to meet in order for me to really fall in love. So like for the Coco Pelli, it's longer than I'm ever used to. This one, I don't race road. Like I have virtually never raced road. So getting ready for a road bike FKT was a really unique experience for me. So from the training aspect, I'm counting on things like my full season of heat training, of altitude acclimation, of endurance riding, like base, all of those things from a physical standpoint. I'm counting on that to pull me through the effort. Most of my unique and specific preparation for these attempts is going to come down to the logistics. I analyze every possible nook and cranny of these attempts, from the weather to the wind direction to like Phil had a video already that he had done on this. So, I'm zooming in on as much as I can on his YouTube. What is that gravel like? What would that be like, to try and figure out all of those unique things? And then, making sure that my equipment and my strategy is really honed to the attempt.
And because you were doing some XC stuff in Spain, like not long after this, correct?
A few months. So I did this at the end of October, and then I started my race season again at the very beginning of February. So this effort was the very end of my season. I actually went straight from the Grand Prix finale in Arkansas straight to Hawaii to do this, and then came home and, collapsed on the ground going, oh my gosh, Finn, we're done.
So like a vacation, but also totally not like a vacation.
Yeah, exactly. We, so far with these FKTs, we've enjoyed keeping them a secret until we launch. And so this one, the Moab ones were a little easier to play off. This one felt a little bit harder, trying to spin a Hawaii trip into a vacation that was very much not a vacation at the end of the season.
So in terms of like, it's a crazy effort. And you obviously you have a full race season under your belt. I mean, that I guess could work against you in certain ways if you're, exhausted from the season. It also is like, you're kind of going into it with a certain race level of sharpness that maybe you don't need to build through training. And so that's an advantage, but it is still unlike anything you're doing over the course of the race season. I mean, it's 55 miles. It's almost 14,000 feet of climbing. The weather is different almost like with each hour of the climb itself, not to mention the weather being different from like the continental states. So, well, like, do you have an intentional pacing strategy? I mean, you mentioned like when we were talking before we recorded that like most of that 30-minute gap you made on the previous record was made in the last maybe like 1 or 2 hours of the climb, which to me seems not coincidental. I mean, that's where the terrain gets more into your sort of expertise. You get some of that deeper sand, steeper gradients. It gets more techy. Was that a specific designed pacing strategy to kind of like stay right on the effort and then, dump it out as the terrain gets more suited to you? Or were you running into some adversity in the first few hours where you were like, I actually have a lot of ground to make up here when it gets hardest?
Yeah, this was a big actually, which, I mean, uh-ohs are so hard. They are so emotionally brutal when you're out there, but afterwards it makes for the best lessons. But this is where I feel like these FKTs really do come down to heart, because it's so easy to give up. You know, you're not in a race. Like, no one is pushing you. You're out there and you're looking at a clock, and at a certain point you're going, this isn't adding up anymore. I'm not going to do it. And that was a point that I hit out there. Is I did have a super specific pacing strategy over the years doing this. My coach has, oh my gosh, I don't know how he manages to, but all of these FKTs he's come down to within 10 watts of the final time, which is pretty crazy when you're thinking about like super technical terrain, 12 plus hours of terrain, Mauna Kea, where you're talking about massive elevation differences. So I trust him with every pedal stroke to get this pacing right. And I did hit that pacing. Like we said, for the first 40 miles, you have about 7,000 feet. And then for the last 15 miles, you have another 7,000 feet.
Right.
So it gets wildly steep. And in those first 40 miles, I was perfectly on pacing strategy, or maybe even a little bit ahead. But I was bleeding time. At about mile 20, I was 6 minutes up on the record. But by the time I made that corner at mile 40, I was 3 minutes behind. I had a massive headwind that just seemed to keep getting harder all day. And so even though my wattage, I was trying to make up for it by slowly creeping up, which I knew I had to be careful. I couldn't just abandon the plan. I have the hardest part ahead of me, yet I'm watching myself bleed time. And I went from starting this effort feeling extremely confident that if I do these numbers, I will get the attempt. This is my goal time. I got it. Here we go. To when I made that left-hand turn for those last 15 miles, I remember thinking, I have come all the way here. I have told everybody I can do this. I have flown a film crew out to help showcase this success. And now I don't even know if I can do this. And that was a really scary moment. But it was also a really powerful thing to have to overcome and to decide, even though I don't know if I can do this, I'm willing to try anyways. And so pushing into that unknown, I think, was the biggest victory that I had on this mountain.
For sure. I mean, there's probably a sort of freedom in that too, of like, well, I might be in the process of losing it all here, but I'm here, so I might as well just like send it and see where it goes. I mean, so was the headwind a surprise to you? When I talked to Phil, he was there for a full week and kind of accounted for the fact that the wind is pretty unpredictable in Hawaii, and so it may be the case that, you know, he goes out. I don't actually think it was wind. I think the visitor center was closed, maybe due to wind, but he just couldn't get to the top the first time he tried it. Did you have a plan like that, or were you like logistically pretty much honed in on one day that this was going to happen?
This was tricky. So we had from the time we touched down to the time we were leaving, we had a week. So I did have a week to play with, but keep in mind I had just raced 100 miles. Okay. And so I didn't want to do it in the first couple days that I got there. I wanted to look at the climb. I wanted to recover from the 100-mile, 100K race, and then the Big Sugar race that I had just done for the Lifetime Grand Prix finale. And all of that quickly changed as well, because we were planning on doing it in the latter half of that week. But when we went up to scout at the visitor center, the rangers up there told us two really important things. They told us, one, the wind is coming. They said the further you push this back, the windier it's going to get. And then secondly, they grade that gravel road twice a week. And right after they grade it, it's the loosest. And so even though you have to walk a little bit anyways, you would virtually be walking the whole 4 miles, is at least what they told me. And so I needed to navigate this biweekly grading. I needed to go as soon as possible before the wind picked up. And so we had to move the attempt forward very quickly in that week. That was the first day we were scouting. On the way home, driving back to the Airbnb, we said, okay, we're doing it tomorrow. So very quickly we had to, get all the gear together, get all the plan together, change the mindset. We're going tomorrow. It doesn't matter if you're recovered. You're doing this anyways. So a little bit of all of the above. I knew it would be a little bit windy. I didn't know it would be quite that windy. Then you're also out there thinking as you're bleeding time, well, I moved it forward. What if they were wrong? What if it's better in 2 days? Maybe I should have waited 2 days for the actual day I was doing it. I'm really pleased to say that 2 days later, the visitor center was closed. The top was closed. So we nailed the timing. Thank goodness. But that's one of the natures of this climb and all of these FKTs, which is so crazy because when you race, one of the really comforting things to me when we race is everyone has the same conditions. It's hard for everyone, right? It's cold, everyone's cold. It's hot, everyone's hot. It's sandy, everyone's time is slower. That is not true in these FKTs. And so you have to get your mind around that level of complaininess, of woe is me, and just say, this is the day I picked and I'm doing it. And the second you give yourself that out of, well, maybe this or maybe that, you can't afford that. And so for me, that's something I always tell the crew when I start is like, once I start this, I am committed. There is no, oh, it was a bad day or it was too hard. And I mean, I'm human, so I have those thoughts, but I don't allow myself to consider quitting once I start because it's, in my mind, it's a race. And this is the day the race happens on.
Right. Yeah, I'm interested in that process. I mean, you've touched on it, but I don't know if you can go into any more detail because it strikes me as like, in addition to their genetic advantages and fitness advantages that elite athletes have over the rest of us, but one that doesn't get talked about as much is probably like that they also confront and overcome adversity in an elite way as well. So what does that process look like for you? I mean, do you have certain like mental or psychological cues that you can use to get yourself into that mindset of we're doing it, I'm turning off my brain, it's time to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just going to keep using this word. It's so multifaceted. I do work with a sports psychologist, and she gives me really actionable things that I can work on. Things like when things start to feel like it unravels, you want to focus on what to do. What are the things you have control over? So when my mind is starting to go, oh my gosh, I can't beat this wind, maybe I'm focusing on my cadence. Maybe I'm shifting, maybe I'm eating, which is great for the First Endurance podcast. Is that's actually a big one I always go to is like, the one thing I can always control is my nutrition. So the hand, like sometimes that's just feels like things are unraveling. I'm going to eat something because I need to reset. But then there's the experience. I've been racing for a really long time at this point, and that is something that I think these FKTs have also gifted me. So I think the more you go to this place, you gain a new understanding of what you're capable of. And the further you keep pushing that, it doesn't become easier, but it does at the same time, because you start to compare everything to that moment. And so that was something that the Kokopelli gifted me when that was my hardest day ever on a bike. And so in these moments, like in Mauna Kea, I can go back to that and I can say, not as hard as that. So I have more. It doesn't feel like I have more, but I know I have it somewhere, and it's my job to find it and to find it now. And so those are some of the things I'm thinking about out there is, where is this extra gear? Because I've seen it before and I have to find it now.
Yeah. And I mean, not easier, as you said, but you at least have the knowledge that it's possible because you've done it before. I mean, I think about probably when you won Leadville too, you were coming off an injury, right? And so there are, and I've had moments like this, not even with regard to cycling, but growing up playing other sports, is sometimes the days you feel like, yeah, nothing, I'm in pitching and in the bullpen, I'm not throwing any strikes and nothing feels right. Those sometimes are the days that end up being the best because you just come into it with a different mindset.
Exactly. I think, we talk a lot to younger athletes or to new athletes about trying to gain confidence, right? Like you just need to be confident, like gain that and confidence it's so like it's fleeting and it's non-tangible in so many ways, but confidence comes from execution, and execution, that is tangible. And so we gain confidence from the things that we've previously executed, whether it's training, whether it's racing. And so exactly what you're talking about is when everything's going awry, when you feel like, man, this is just not my day, with that experience comes the ability to look back and say, but I did it that time when it wasn't my day. I did it that time when I felt terrible. I did that workout and hit these numbers. And all of a sudden, the data adds up to intellectualize it into your brain. And all of a sudden, your brain hits this green light where it's like, oh, wait, yeah. Okay, I'll let this happen because you have proven it to me. I agree. Let's go.
Yeah, it's like, hey, we actually are doing it, as it turns out. This is great. You mentioned the fueling aspect of it, and that to me, like, especially, I didn't know if this was a pacing strategy or an especially given that it was an getting that fueling right for the first, I guess it would be like 4-ish hours of this effort, really like allowed your body to follow your mind. Once you sort of like gave yourself permission to feel like this is possible, you still need to have like the fuel on board to actually physically make it happen. So what did the fueling look like in this effort, and how big a role do you think it played in those final couple hours?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely massive. I think fueling is probably one of the number one elements to this FKT, not just because of the length, but because of how it's set up. Like you're saying, those last couple hours, they're largely the most important. And so you really have to stack the fueling to stay strong in those last couple hours, but also because as you start to go up in the elevation and as you hit 20 plus gradients, and as you start walking your bike on the gravel, and as you start hitting 40 RPMs, it does become harder to fuel. Whether or not you're able to do it is maybe a personal thing, but I think everyone can agree that it becomes harder regardless. And so you need to enter in to those last 15 miles as fully topped off as possible. And so for me, that's something that I'm really happy about and grateful for in this attempt was, like you said, I had to nail that fueling in the first few hours. For me, in an attempt like this, I'm aiming for about 100 grams of carbs per hour. And then I did do this supported. And so basically what we decided was every hour I would get a new bottle and we would attach some liquid shots to that bottle. And so I was basically rotating out the fuel each hour. And that was helping me stay really accountable because I could also see, oops, this hour I have one that I haven't eaten. Gotta catch up. But I think not only is it important, I think this is a really great lesson in that I hear as a coach as well, more often than not, when everything starts to hit the fan, instead of doubling down on fueling, a lot of the time people make the mistake of letting that fall away too, because you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not doing well enough. What's even the point? Like, it's this weird unconscious feeling of like, I'm not doing well enough, so why even bother with the fueling? But it should be the opposite.
Yeah.
What is my body doing? Like, maybe it needs more help. And so I had to really continue to intellectualize the feeling of I need this, stay on it, it matters, it will count, it will come back to help. And like you're saying, it absolutely did in those last couple hours.
100%. Do you go all liquid shot on this and just keep water in the bottles, or are you mixing both during each hour?
I'm a huge liquid shot person, but I do the EFS Pro typically like every other bottle in a small amount. So first bottle water, second bottle 2 scoops EFS Pro, water, and so I go back and forth, and I think that helps me get in the volume of water I need, but also helps supplement some of those carbs and electrolytes as well, because that was a very quick change that I made. Even at the bottom, we had agreed every hour you're going to get a bottle, and started that first hour and went, wow, it's really hot in Hawaii. I'm going to go ahead and need an extra one, please. And we sort of adjusted that to maybe around 45 minutes pretty quick on those early hours.
Yeah, and I mean, that just speaks to what we were talking about previously, too, of like, it's a skill in its own right to be able to quickly pivot away from your plan when you see that it might not be as optimal as you thought it would be. So I feel like maybe I know the answer to this next question based on what we've talked about, but what would you say is the most challenging aspect of the climb that no one talks about?
Oh my gosh, that no one talks about.
Or maybe that fewer people talk about. Like, you always hear about how loose the gravel is at the top, how steep it is, the elevation, the altitude. But are there underrated aspects of this that are kind of like, oh, you spend all your time preparing for the biggies, but you don't realize that this is also going to happen?
Yeah. Like you said, I mean, I think the gravel is probably the most talked about, but does deserve that level of respect. But if you're talking about underrated, rarely talked about aspects, I would say the wind and the consistency. Because you do focus so hard on, oh, at the top it's going to be so steep, I'm going to be out of the saddle, I'm going to be walking. Honestly, at that point, most people will probably welcome the walking because you're at least changing positions.
Right.
In the first 40 miles, it's relatively the same gradient the whole time. Like I said, it could be very windy. Don't discount that. And you are just locked in to one position. The only reason your body moves is if you decide to move it. So like moving, for example, from the hoods to the drops, that was a move I was doing because I just needed some movement. But I think for the average person going and doing it, that probably is a big thing because rarely anywhere else in the world do you stay on the pedals that long. You have some sort of coasting or changing of position or turns. There's really no reason to ever stop pedaling, which is its own challenge.
Yeah, I mean, it shows sort of the power of context on your mental state, because anywhere else, if you're talking about, you're getting 7,000 feet of climb in 40 miles, that's a hard climb. That's a proper climb on its own. That's the easy part of this climb. That's the like, oh, I need to hold something back here, or it's not so steep, I'll try and get super aero. But I mean, you're doing it on, you're on a 5% climb for 4 hours, and that's supposedly the easy part.
Exactly. And I was so grateful for that turn because of the wind and because I knew, okay, here we go. Like, it's do or die now. And maybe that mindset actually helped me because before the attempt, the mindset for that corner that I was preparing for was, oh my gosh, we're just starting. Because that could easily be how it feels. You're hours deep in this effort. You make that turn and it just kicks up and you can see the climb so far ahead. And it does feel like a restart, like here you go again, but you're already hours into this effort. And so it easily could be oh my gosh, like it just never ends. So, I mean, again, like it just makes me smile because I feel like I said, maybe it was a blessing for me that I got to have that turn and have such a different emotional confrontation of that moment in the climb. It just feels like a reminder that it is what you make it. It's all about your perception. Like out there, perception is everything, even about how you speak to yourself about, I'm having a great day, or oh, I'm not doing good enough. Like the amount of times that I have told myself one of those stories when the effort was relatively the same, it changes everything. You might as well be positive.
Absolutely. When you make the turn, having never done the climb, are you getting a tailwind there, or are you just changing it to more of a head crosswind? Like, what kind of turn are we talking about?
It's you become more sheltered,
Okay.
basically. So you're not really getting a tailwind, but all of a sudden it becomes more still. And so it was total relief of like, also I can hear my thoughts again. I'm sure most people who ride bikes know that, when it's just like ripping headwind through your ears and then you make that turn, you're like, oh my gosh, it's so quiet.
Yep.
And so that was what that felt like.
I grew up riding in Iowa, so as every single training ride, you set out into the headwind, even though it's terrible, because you know you get that beautiful moment when you flip and start coming home, and all of a sudden it's quiet and you're going 28 miles an hour and doing 200 watts.
Yeah.
Would you say, like, do you think you made any mistakes fueling or equipment or pacing wise? Like, if you did this again, what would you change?
That's a really good question. I mean, so I don't think I made any mistakes. Like I'm very happy with the effort that I made, and I think if I did it again, I would keep everything pretty much exactly the same. And just
Hope for
try
a
and
better
go faster, go harder, hope for a better wind, of course, but I won't say that. I'll put it on myself,
Is it ever
be
a
stronger.
tailwind, by the way, or is the wind always headwind on Mauna Kea?
It's my understanding that it shifts.
Okay.
But like I said, I was only there a week, so I only got to see, one type of element. But it is crazy. Like it does change. Even in the week we were there, the top, because the top is cold. You start in 80 degrees and you end in 30. We were down at the bottom in short sleeves, burning up, and at the top in puffy jackets. So I'm really happy with my effort. I do think that, like anyone watching the film who wants to go try this, the average person, the things that I would point to my setup and maybe recommend slightly differently is, the last, like we're saying, 15 miles are really hard. So switching to a gravel bike or a mountain bike not only would probably make that gravel a lot easier for you, but it would also probably give you a much easier gear that might be a little more enjoyable.
Which you did not do, right? You stayed on the road bike?
Yeah, I decided to stay on the road bike. And that I think is still kind of, it's 50-50. I think Phil switched, didn't he? Yeah.
Well, the first time he did it a couple years ago, he did not. Then the guy who took his QOM did switch, but emailed him or texted him beforehand to ask if that was like kosher. And he said, "Yeah, go for it, and I'll just switch time and try and beat you."
Yeah, I do think in this type of effort, supported is supported, right? So you can really make any adjustments you want out there. For some reason, for me, I was really like headstrong about, I want to prove you can do this whole thing on one bike. We did actually have some stuff in the car for like, if, it was really bad, if I was really struggling, we did have mountain bike shoes and different set of wheels, different bike that I could switch to, but my goal was to not switch. The biggest concern was I was on road shoes, and so the more I walked, the more there was a risk of potentially breaking a cleat. And so, yeah, I think for the average person, for safety purposes, in terms of like the enjoyment of the climb, switching would probably be optimal. But I also wanted to show that, hey, if you're going to Hawaii and you want to do this, like, you don't have to bring two bikes. Just
Right.
come and enjoy it.
Absolutely. How much walking did you have to do in the gravel section? I mean,
Yeah.
if any, because Phil was adamant that there is no way on a road bike you're getting up that. Nobody on
Oh, really?
tried the whole thing. So there were people who disagreed, but he said, I just don't think it's possible, depending on the day, to ride the whole thing on a road bike.
Yeah, it would be pretty tough. I will give sort of the insight that when I pre-rode that section, because that was really one of the only sections I pre-rode, I was able to ride most of it, just like a couple small short, like it would pitch up and maybe I'd have to walk like 10 or 20 feet. But that was kind of going all over the road to find the best gravel, as many of us do. In the attempt, the ranger actually was out there and saw me going and was very adamant that I stay on the right side of the road, which is totally fair and safe. And I fully respect that. In the moment, you're like, but it's harder packed over there,
This line
please.
is terrible, sir.
So I had to walk a little bit more in the attempt that I planned. I would say it still came out to less than half a mile of walking.
Yeah, I mean, I figured like if anybody was going to prove him wrong, it would be you, given that your background and your expertise is in these like long mountain bike races. Increasingly, it seems to me like the lifetime stuff gets closer and closer to mountain bike
Yeah.
every year.
Well, it is so funny because I guess I had told Clayton more about the walking, but the crew, I hadn't. Maybe I thought I had, but I guess I hadn't quite emphasized the amount of walking that was needed. So again, just some fun like BTS. When I first stopped and had to put a foot down, the whole film crew like gasped because they were like,
It's
like,
over.
why would she ever have to? Exactly, it's over. That's what one of them said, was like, oh my gosh, it's over. She's falling apart. And Clayton was like, no, guys, this was planned. We're all good. Which I just love that, because the gasp is such an honest, like, just immediate reaction that really shows how invested and how much everyone else cares and is like very closely watching and monitoring, not only my time, but my body language, my face, my actions, how is she feeling? Can she, is she going to do it?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's fun to know that it's such a team accomplishment at the end of the day, that everybody's basically as invested in this as you are.
Oh, big time. And that's a piece that, we try really hard in these films to show that. But it's hard to always point the camera multiple directions. At the top of this climb, having gone through all of that, feeling like I almost lost it, pulling it back, then ending up beating it by a significant margin, and going through that wave of emotions, we were all basically in tears at the
Right.
top, not just me, not just Clayton, but the film crew. And I've been lucky enough that the same people have filmed all four of these FKTs now. So they've seen me ride in 100 degrees. They've seen me ride in 17 degrees. They've seen me ride at 14,000 feet. They've seen me go through so much that, gosh, it's just so special. I feel like they know me so well. They know, like I'm saying, they know that look on my face, when it's going
Like
well,
the
when it's
proper
not going well.
perspective for it too. Just how
Exactly.
challenging it was, because they know you and know your abilities.
Exactly.
That's all I've got. I really appreciate you sitting down to talk with us. Really fascinating to get into, as much as anything else, like the mindset of being able to take on a challenge this difficult, even if everything goes right. I mean, it's going to be extremely difficult, but especially when you encounter adversity, hearing how you were able to push through that in the way that you can reframe things, and get the most out of yourself was really cool to hear. So thank you so much. And I know you know what's coming next, and I know you won't tell us. So whatever it is, best of luck with whatever comes next winter.
Thanks so much. And I hope we can chat again about it.
Yeah, appreciate it. Take care.